Welcome to Create Income with or Without a Job. I'm Jamila Harris, your Create Income coach. And we are thrilled to be joined today by one of the most extraordinary women entrepreneurs and friends. And her name is Dr. MARILLYN Brathwaite Hall. Dr. MARILLYN Hall, thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure. I'm always excited to assist and connect with anything that you're in the midst of, Jamila. So thank you so much, and good afternoon to the listening audience and viewing audience.
Well, I'm really excited about them getting to know you and receiving from your amazing gift that you have for personal coaching and assisting us to literally travel through adversity and uncertainty and with some sense of, resurrection and redemption and self-care. If you'll allow me one moment, I would like to share your background with our viewing audience. Dr. MARILLYN Brathwaite Hall is a certified personal coach and consultant who brings an integrated perspective to counseling, personal coaching, and psychoeducation. Dr. Hall conducts coaching to assist individuals to restore mental wellness and transform their lives after suffering mental, physical, and emotional trauma. Adversity in her personal life experiences have anchored Dr. Hall's deep appreciation for the transforming power of the human spirit through triumphs, traumas, and brokenness. Dr. Hall earned her bachelor's degree from Tufts University and an EDM from Harvard University, and further specialized in counseling psychology through study at Northeastern University and a postdoctoral fellowship at Georgia State University. Dr. MARILLYN Brathwaite Hall co-hosts a weekly radio show and podcast, Wellness Wednesdays, where she coaches and inspires individuals to restore well-being after the trauma of Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017. She is the mother of two daughters, Sakile and Kiamsha, and wife of David Hall, president of the University of the Virgin Islands. So we are delighted to have with us today Dr. MARILLYN Brathwaite Hall. And so, Dr. MARILLYN Brathwaite Hall, let's talk about, you have a few recommendations that you've made about how to, in telling the truth, we have to create a space for, basically talk about that, creating space in the silence and what it is we would be doing with that.
Well, it's interesting. I remember we had the conversation some days ago, and so often the shock of the loss, right? And all of the ways that it ricochets throughout our lives and our beings. So where does the recalibration come? And so it may be literally a physical space. So do you have a table? Do you have a little top, that you can clear off? Sometimes we need literally a space that is cleared off, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes people may create a sort of an altar, an anchoring space, things that when you see give you back affirmation of who you are. So creating a space. So often both the trauma and the reality, there's so much information. You turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, you go on social media, the bombardment of information, fact, myth, fiction, all connected to this, along with your own personal experience, creates so much noise in our heads. And so being able to create space, be it a physical space or going inward. So one of the things that I have appreciated about even the language of sheltering in is a way in which an invitation for all of us to shelter in the inner parts of who we are. And so that silent place is a place for us to hear ourselves. So when we create silence, you may need necessarily even put on some headphones if your home life is such that there's so many others in there, you got children or others. Maybe it's the bathroom. You put a sign on the bathroom door, right? In progress, silent space, safe space, 20 minutes, sorry. Put the headphones on and you may just need to hear yourself. Trauma distorts and impacts in such a way that it impacts our sensory intake. So you may need to hear and listen differently. So the silent places may open up places inside of our subconscious that in the noise of all of what is taking place, we can't hear ourselves. And so lighting a candle, using essential oils, taking a shower, taking a bath, going inward, sheltering in, who is going to take care of you in deeper, more nourishing ways at this point when you are feeling that survival instinct to get something in? You've got to quiet it down and silence those places that create that speed to get it done. But if we're doing it from that hairy, distorted place, all of us is not going to be present to do what's needed. And so the silence is the most powerful place to hear ourselves. And even before the shutdown and all, perhaps you have not allowed yourself much silent space, filled with activity, the next thing, the next meeting, the next marketing thing, the next piece, the children this, the homework, all of that. So perhaps, just perhaps, this is your season to shelter in differently. So silence, meditation, encouraging and expanding and connecting with this notion of mindfulness. So before I connected with my dear friend Jamila here, I had an issue with my laptop that was creating a buzz. And so it was like, oh my gosh. And so it's very easy in the moment to get so frazzled. And so for me, I needed to center in the moment, breathe. So as I was texting her, I allowed myself to flow, let that thing flow through me, because I realized that if I got wrapped up in that and was fighting against it, I would be this frazzled person, be like, Jimmy, you don't even want to have me. Let's just reschedule because this is not going to work. But this is what is real. Mm-hmm. Our capacity to adapt, to be mindful in the moment is our power source. This is like a power source that we have. And for many of us, we are not aware of it because we've been doing so much. We're used to all the doing, but we're not used to being. And so sheltering in and going inward through the silence that may acknowledge that we're grieving and we feel really sad, acknowledging that we feel really needy. And the question is, well, what do I need? If you allow yourself to be silent enough, what exactly do I need? Yes, money, I need money right now. But in this moment, what in fact do I need? I want to hear someone to say to me, you are worthy, you are capable, you are valuable, you are appreciated. Your life matters. And so maybe in that moment, you need to say that to yourself and allow that to resonate. And perhaps in that moment, you may go, I need some company right now. And so that may be an outreach to somebody as you move forward in this journey, creating income without a job and moving forward and a path beyond this COVID-19, that it may be a part of your support circle. As I said before, with grief and loss, we often have company in the journey and in the process. With new ventures, we have partners, weight loss, walking, running a marathon. You have coaches and people and mentors along the way. Jamila will be your coach. You're create income, without a job coach. But maybe you need company for someone to say, girl, right now, give me that, give me what I need. You are worthy. I appreciate you. You are capable. You have done it before and you will do it again. Oh, got it. Thank you.
And right? It's so important. And you've really been very instrumental in my life and also helping me to grow into being one of those persons to others. You call it being a safe place. And you are really gifted at creating a safe place, safe places for people, being that safe place where when the person is freaking out, when the fear is trying to overtake them, you're the one
Yes.
that we can call or text, and you just say, girl, you got it going on. You know, God's got you in the palm of his hand. You know
Mm.
how dynamic you are. You know how many times you've been down and how many times you've gotten up, girlfriend.
Bam, that's right.
This ain't
Bam.
this ain't nothing for you. You are well equipped, more than equal to the task.
Mm. You know, and I appreciate you saying that because in those moments, we have profound amnesia, because our brain loop and our memory loop in that fear center, it distorts in the moment, right? And so we're pulling, you know, and we go back into that place that is all about fear and grabbing. Fear distorts. And I've come to really appreciate that, you know, in whatever wisdom system, spiritual practice, religious practice that those who are watching and listening that you partake of and as a part of your ongoing practice, fear and the release of fear is often a part of most spiritual practices. So fear grows out of our humanness, our brain function. There's no spiritual practice that encourages fear. I mean, there is none. It's often about love, right? And in those moments when we feel fear and get disconnected from the self, we need oftentimes another human person if our spiritual connection is at that time feels far away or feels questionable or distant. Sometimes we need the human present in order to do that and encourage us to create that link. And so I just want to encourage individuals as well that their spiritual power is also a part of their repertoire, that though it's an automatic thing, but to be able to cultivate it with deep and intentional ways is also part of the kind of toolkit that is deliberate and a part of what can be a really powerful dynamic in order to help to create the way forward. And so that place of creating sanctuary and safety is important. There may be those, quite frankly, who are viewing and listening. This experience has opened up parts of themselves that they thought that they were finished with. That it's touched that button in that place that creates that vulnerability of losses and things that were in the past, and is opening up Pandora in a way that is unexpected. And so individuals who feel like perhaps that their mental health and their well-being is tenuous, or there's been some concern about their safety or well-being, I would be remiss to say that if you have those concerns, there are many, many resources. The Suicide Prevention Hotline, SAMHSA has a disaster distress helpline that is staffed 24/7. If I could find them to have the number, but those resources are available. If in fact you still have some insurance that is present, even as you wait and are shifting, you may have been furloughed, but your insurance may be intact. Telemental health in terms of psychotherapy, perhaps some trauma counseling, explicit work to deal with some things that are opening up for you may be necessary right now. So I wanted to share that because it's important that that everyone pay attention to the impact of these kind of cumulative stressors. And if there is some history of mental illness or mental health concerns that may be bubbling up to the surface, don't push it away. You know, this may be in fact a time for you to re-engage with a clinician, a psychotherapist, psychologist, a mental health professional to help you to move through. And someone like myself that can help you to do that forward looking and to create steps and plans and look at mindfulness practices or resources that are present with you and perhaps help you to begin to change and shift the narrative that may temporarily be a part of your circumstance, but is not a reality of what is to be for the future, then I can be of support. But for those of you who are experiencing the mental health challenges and some other things are creeping up, then absolutely to be able to reach out for resources to support that part of your wellness journey.
And Dr. Hall, we do have that number that you wanted to share for the
Yes.
National Suicide Hotline. And for our viewers, we'll just put it on the screen. That
Okay.
number is 1-800-273-8255. That is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. 1-800-273-8255. And
I do.
for those of you who've just joined us, we are talking with Dr. MARILLYN Brathwaite Hall, who is a personal coach and is available also. Feel free to reach out to Dr. Hall by email. Her email address is drmarilynbhall@gmail.com. Dr. MARILLYN, that's Dr. MARILLYNbhall@gmail.com.
Jamila, I did find the number. Let me also share another number for those who may be
Okay.
viewing and listening for the Disaster Distress Helpline. And that is staffed by SAMHSA, which is the federal government, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Agency. And it's 1-800-985-5990. Again,
Okay.
that's
I'm getting
1-800-985-5990.
So now we're sharing another number,
Yes.
which is 1-800-985, 985
Yes.
5990. And that is
Yes.
SAMHSA. What does SAMHSA stand for, Dr. Brathwaite Hall?
It's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Agency, but people can find it. SAMHSA is mental health.
Okay.
And there's also a text version for those who find texting to be easier.
Okay.
They can text "talk with us" to 66746. And it's staffed multilingually. And so if someone has particular language needs outside of English, there are prompts that will come up, and there are crisis counselors available in, I think, at least a dozen languages that will text back and forth. And certainly the same is the case for the 1-800 number as well.
And so these are vital resources available to you right this moment. If you are really feeling what many of us feel as we go through the different, I mean, from morning to lunchtime, the pressures can sometimes just be overwhelming, but don't feel that you don't have help. Don't feel that you're alone. Reach out. There's human contact available, and human contact that's trained as well as that understands. So 1-800-985-5990 is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Agency hotline. And if you'd like to send a text "talk with us" to 66746. Talk
Yes.
with us to 66746. Thank you for those resources.
Absolutely.
Dr.
And I think that that's part of what becomes important, right? And so as you sort of tell the truth, acknowledge if you freeze, if you fight, if you flee, acknowledge the reality of the grief process and the journey, then the issue of engaging sort of the fight in a way that is about creating that path forward. And is part of what Jamila has created step by step in this process of creating income without a job. So often we forget all of the gifts and talents that are part of who we are. And there's a wonderful way in which Jamila just helped you to tease that out and to really begin to look at who are you? There's so many ways in which the rhythm of working, running a business, all of that, that at times we really forget. And so part of what becomes helpful in terms of building what I do at times with individuals that I've worked with, their own sort of resilience building plan, right? So what are my gifts or talents? What is it that I know that I have? And that narrative becomes really important to delineate them, to tease them out, becomes really important. It's also helpful to ask yourself the question, how have I engaged adversity previously? As I said before, we all have a history. I know in my own journey, my own story, sometimes I forget. And it's important to have those around you who remind you, sometimes I get stuck, right, in my humanness. And so what is your story of overcoming that sometimes you need to write out? So your own story, your own narrative, and what are the key pieces that you can pull out of your own story that perhaps you need to put up on a bulletin board, you need to put up on your mirror, you need to put up on your refrigerator to remind yourself back to yourself of who you are. Because again, that amnesia sets in when that overwhelming reality of what is present here is occurring. And so there are things that we have had happen to us that didn't break us. And our notion in the moment and the time that we felt broken, but oh my goodness, when we look back over our shoulders, when I look back over the incredible journeys that I've gone through, what felt like massive valley experiences, but yet it didn't define who I am through being able to accomplish degrees and doctoral studies and postdocs and all of that, and creating space for others to be able to hear themselves into their own wellness. Sometimes we need company and support for someone else to be that catalyst, and at times a nudge, and at times a push with support and love to help us to be able to do that. And I'm absolutely humbled whenever I'm able to provide that for individuals in countless ways. And a couple of the things that I would share is that I believe the power of culture is a very powerful teaching tool for all of us. The many of us that we come out of cultural backgrounds, particularly those of African ancestry, this culture and this journey I know well, as a West Indian woman, a Jamaican woman, there are things embedded in our cultural stories that are part of us, both in terms of meaning making, identity development, resilience building, all of these things that are in us that at times we often just take for granted because we're living it. And these moments like a COVID-19 causes us to stop. And when we're able to slow down enough, it causes that place to explore and to remind and perhaps even rediscover some of the cultural lessons that are present in our oral history, in the history of our forebears, our foremothers and our forefathers. Who is in your ancestral line? Those who are listening and watching, that you can draw strength from, whose legacies and stories of their own overcoming they poured and planted in you. Even in the broken stuff, even in the stories that are not good, there's some pieces in there that can be culled that you can use for right now. And so I think oftentimes we forget the legacies of our cultural histories that we can stand upon and use in particular and distinct ways to explore identity, resilience, business, entrepreneurship, gratefulness, gratitude, the role of food, music, all these things that are sustaining, that are in us, they're part of us. And in this time and in this lived experience collectively and individually, I invite all to begin to sort of slow down enough to look and see those other resources that may be at hand that naturally we may not think about. But I'm far more reminded these days that we have power in our legacies that we often bring to bear.
So I do want to just recap just quickly for those who have recently joined our interview, and even for those who've been listening, some powerful tools that you have given us for how to begin to deal with trauma, not just live in the trauma, but deal with trauma with the steps and plan and projection of moving beyond the trauma. And so you have talked about, first of all, facing the fear, telling the truth about what has happened, about what we feel about what's happened, actually experiencing our grief as
Yes.
because there's so much that's being lost,
Yes.
and there is grief about that, and then getting in touch with what is my grief pattern, because I've lost things before. I've relocated from one place to another. That meant I had to leave something behind to go to the new place. I've lost a job before. I've lost money before. I've lost family members before. So each one of us has a grief pattern.
Yes.
So we already have a pattern of how we respond to and grieve about these losses. And so you've really suggested very clearly getting quiet and practicing being in the silence for a few minutes at a time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And in the case of where many of us are sheltering in place and sheltering at home, staying home, where there are more people in the house together at one time, establishing that boundary of, okay, this is mom's 20 minutes in the bathroom uninterrupted, or this is dad's 20 minutes in the office, the home office. Don't knock on the door. This is not time for anybody to need anything. This is my time that I am going to practice the silence of being alone with myself, listening to my self-talk. And then you've also shared something even so powerful, which is to create our support system or reach out to our support system. You've got to have someone who can, when you are at that brink, you can call, text, Zoom with, whatever, and hear the feedback that you are valuable. Your life matters. You will get through this. You will move beyond this. You have moved beyond things before. You are strong enough. You are talented enough. You are special. And it's so important to have that voice or those voices and that type of support. So these are all tools that you have recommended that we can practically use and implement as we move through our trauma to that new positive place of overcoming.
Wow, that was beautifully said. Thank you so much. So I've been co-hosting a radio show for the last 2 years, to my great surprise. And this is really an example of life manifesting itself out of broken places. I did not intentionally seek to be a co-host of a wellness program, but it grew out of an invitation to speak to a group. And that speaking to one group about, essentially it was acute stress response. What happens after we've gone through traumatic experiences from the hurricanes? We did breathing, we did meditation. We talked about the ways in which that the normal response can be manifested in all of us. So one thing led to another, and funding sources, which then started this show. Little did I know 2 years later that it would be a thing now. And so I share that with those listening and viewing, to know that in the broken places, this grew out of a traumatic experience. And so I use this most recent part of my own story, as I could have used many other parts of coming out of traumatic experiences in my life that I thought that I would not recover from, or I thought that the broken places were too deep for me. And yet it's often in that bridge over to the other side of wellness, once you get out the freeze and of the flight, and you engage the fight with intention, not fist fighting, but fight with engagement and being open. My heart and my mind was open to be of support. And so from that started this radio show. And we have 80 something shows that we have done, to my great surprise. And part of what people tell me that they look forward to hearing is that I always have a breathing pause. And so I share that one as an important, essential tool. We've got to breathe, people. And I know you go, Dr. Marilyn, breathe. Of course, I'm breathing, I'm watching you. But intentional breath work, breathing on purpose, breathing with the aim of slowing down, of sheltering in, is the gift we give to ourselves. There's so many YouTube channels, programs, apps around meditation and mindfulness. But even in the most basic way, if you take a nice deep breath in through your nose, let your belly rise and hold for 4, 3, 2, 1, and you exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. Yes, hold 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. If you do that to begin your day as a midday pause before you go to bed at night, and you practice, there's so many different ways. You can breathe with a count. We sometimes on the show do closing our eyes. We do imagery work, creating that safe place inside. If I invited you to do that breathing work, to close your eyes, and where's that safe place inside? Is it a person, feeling held by that person in this age of no physical connection? Is it a scene? Is it a beach? Is it a forest? Is it a path? Where's that place inside for you that, oh, it's your place of sanctuary and safety? You can do imagery work on the inside. You can do progressive muscle relaxation, which means you start from the top of your head and you're tightening and releasing all the major muscle groups until you get to your feet, and you work it all the way back up from your feet, all the way back up to your head. You know, there is yoga and yoga pauses and yoga movement and all of these things that for some may be new. And for others, they used to do it. I used to do that stuff a long time ago, but life and business and working pushed it aside. And so maybe, just maybe, this time and this place, even as you deal with the realities of the pressing needs, that I encourage you to think about it as a time to cultivate a sheltering in well-being in a way that perhaps you wouldn't naturally. Perhaps this is your invitation to yourself in a way that allows the deepening connection to the power of who you are, regardless of COVID-19, so that when this passes, and this too will pass, however long it takes, however the rhythm of the season, we don't know, but you will be here. And the question is, what will the quality of who you are be when this shifts in different ways? So mindfulness work, breath work, movement work, silence, and journaling. I've been journaling since I was, I think, in the 4th or 5th grade. It's a powerful, safe space, again, that you can see yourself back to yourself. Sometimes it's a place to cuss somebody out because you can't say it with your mouth. You can write all the stuff down, you can't say it. Or it's a way to begin to imagine, you know, to tap into your creative gifts, to actually begin to write down, what if? So what if all your money was restored? Would you go back to that job? What if? You know, the what ifs, and you began to just write that out. What if? What are those dreams and those places that you have tucked away? What if you began to write them down differently in that silent space, in that place that you set aside just for you? So those are some of the other tools and things that have been, I think, helpful for others, as I've learned certainly over these last 2 years doing the show, that I have personally benefited from. So it's been my own recovery and wellness journey as we've come out of these natural disasters that have expanded and helped to anchor and grow my own wellness that I share with those who are viewing and listening.